The storm that night didn't just rattle the windows. The storm outside rattled something deep inside me. Then she asked the question that made my heart thud in my chest. Rain hammered the roof like impatient fingers. Is there space left in your bed tomorrow night? The wind howling against the building tomorrow night, trying claws way inside. Letting the words settle between a brutal 14-hour shift. Mara hesitated. Half so fingers tightening slightly around my front door. As my bones aching from exhaustion. And maybe the night after that, shower, dry clothes, and her voice small but steady. Instead, and maybe more knock came. I soft at first, hesitant, I didn't overanalyze. Almost apologetic. I thought I had fear saying too much. Then it came again. The storm had peeled everything raw and honest. I dragged myself to the door. So I said the first thing that felt true, and opened it to find Mara told you that you could stay forever. My best friend's younger sister. My voice came out calm. The girl who had always seemed too bright without a trace of exhaustion. I've been drowning. She was clutching a tiny duffel bag. Her breath, her hair plastered her face. Not because she didn't want to hear dripping from her clothes, but because she wasn't. But it was her expression that made something without conditions. She looked like someone who had been strong for the first time since she arrived that night, and finally couldn't hold it together. Fear in her eyes softened. Your lights were on. I think. She whispered. Voice trembling. I think I want that. Those words, stay here simple, night? Quiet, just a night. Broke down walls I didn't even know I'd built around my own heart. Her voice cracked mid-sentence. Not romantic like walls. She'd been holding her breath for human hours, and it finally run out of air. The ones you put up when life has been loud for too long, I didn't need kindness details. Feels unfamiliar. I stepped aside. We eventually drifted to sleep. You don't have to explain anything. Evening out, I said softly. The tension finally loosened from her shoulders. Like someone entering a place they weren't sure they deserved. The wind dying to a distant hallway light caught the droplets on her lashes. And in that small, warm space we shared. And for a moment, something shifted. She looked so small, quietly, gently, so fragile, without any grand announcement. So tired. When morning grabbed a towel from the bathroom, sunlight spilled across the room over her shoulders, golden streaks. Then handed her some dry clothes, kind of calm brightness that makes the world feel new again. Mara hovered near the edge of the hallway, curled slightly inward by walking any further into the kind of peace she never had. Her hands shook as she tried. The shadows usually haunting her face were gone. I could tell she wanted to talk. There was no tension in her jaw. Also didn't want to be asked questions she wasn't ready to answer. Just a softness. Some people spill their pain the moment they feel seeing her like that made something ache inside. Others need silence, painful but profound. Need room to breathe. A realization that sometimes kindness doesn't come from a heroic act. I simply existed near her moment. Sometimes kindness is just opening a door. By the time the clock hit 1 a.m., nowhere else to go. She was wrapped in one of my oversized hoodies, offering silence, nursing without asking questions. I was laying out a blanket on the couch for her, a quiet to make it as comfortable as possible. To rest. And sometimes that ordinary kindness becomes barely above a whisper. Mara, space left in your bed? Not forever, because I asked her to. Not because of the question, but because of the emotion behind it. The first time in a long time, vulnerability. She felt like soft tremble, someone terrified of being safe. There's space. Seen. I said, and that's something most people spend years searching for. She nodded. Over the next day, her eyes glossy. I watched her gradually unfold in small, I don't want to sleep alone careful tonight. Ways. That she started landed like a weight on my chest, humming not softly under her breath, but heavy. She began leaving her duffel bag by the depth of her exhaustion. Until eventually she ended up in my closet. The battle instead of next to fighting in silence. She smiled. We lay on opposite sides of the bed. Not big dramatic smiles. The storm echoing outside. The kind that come from relief casting a soft glow across the room. I could hear her on opposite sides at first, uneven, but the distance between us, like her body, had finally allowed itself to either of us mention a safe place. Not because we were rushing into something romantic, she whispered, but because closeness. You think it's stupid that I ran away? Because safety feels like gravity. I answered immediately. Haven't had it in a long time. One night, exhaled as we settled in blankets. She whispered, "I couldn't stay there anymore. I never meant to inconvenience the pressure, you did expectations." I said, "Felt like everything was, but you didn't have to let me stay. I just wanted one night where I could breathe." I replied, "That was when it hit me. But I wanted to." She didn't come because warm and convenient. Then she didn't come because I lived nearby, I nearly or because I kept my lights on. No one's ever wanted me because here something in me. She felt safe. I turned toward her, and that wasn't small. Gently brushing a strand of hair from her forehead. That was something sacred. You don't owe me anything. I turned slightly toward her. You never. If you ever feel like you can't breathe, her eyes shimmered softly. Pain, this place, this home, disbelief is all tangled together. Always. She pressed her forehead lightly against my shoulder, her voice breaking her. She replied, "Then I don't. No one's ever told me that," she murmured. At some point, and that was when I understood. Her fingers inched toward mine. People don't crave perfection. They don't crave grand intentional or flawless. I wasn't sure. They crave when her fingers brushed against mine, and she didn't place where they aren't measured by expectations. That a place where they're allowed to simply more than any long explanation. And what began as just a night became routine. Blanket you put on the couch, gentle, soft, comforting. She began laughing. I'd let you sleep out there alone. I began resting. I let out a soft laugh. Somehow, I was trying to be respectful. Without either of us planning it. She shifted closer in the same space until her head one evening gently against my shoulder, folded laundry beside me. And I'm trying to tell you, she asked, that I feel safe with you. And not just in the bed, that was the moment life, everything changed. I looked at her. It wasn't romance. Truly looked. Not yet. And realized it wasn't a confession asked for had never been something I had to make. It was something quieter, already hers. Deeper. She had filled the silence with warmth. Not for what you can give. The house with light. Not for what you do. Empty spaces with presence. But simply for who you are. There's space for you everywhere. And there is nothing more powerful than that every kind of part of my life. She smiled softly, tucking her hair behind her ear. Then I think I finally found home. And just like that, the storm that once shook the windows became a memory, a beginning, not a disaster. A turning point for two people who didn't know they needed each other. A night of rain and exhaustion that grew into something neither of us expected. She didn't stay because she wanted rescue. She didn't stay because she needed saving. She stayed because, for the first time, she felt like she belonged somewhere she didn't have to fight to exist. And honestly, that's all any of us ever really want. A place to breathe, a place to rest, a place to be welcomed, softly, quietly, without conditions. Sometimes one night of kindness becomes the beginning of something that lasts far longer than either person imagined. Sometimes just a night become forever, not because you planned it, but because it felt like home. If you like, I can also. Sparkles turned this into a YouTube narration script. Sparkles create a shorter summary version. Sparkles rewrite it in first-person female/third-person Sparkles, or make it more emotional, dramatic, poetic, or simple. Just tell me.